I say, chaps, just a quick pic of Cressida, Lady Mary, Uncle Algernon and Jasper sipping champagne out on the lawn before dinner. How utterly civilised. I'm not delusional in my imagination. I actually live in an episode of Downton Abbey. In real life, I have to thrift for the things that create that lifestyle for me. So here we are at Freestone Antique Market. It's in a place called Freestone, which is in Hamilton, Ontario. It's about an hour's drive from my home. And I am looking for items that remind me of that country house feel, that French country feel, and all the little things that go into making my house my home. So this week I have a shopping trip to Fulton. I have a thrift haul, and then I have a couple of thrift makeovers just to show you what I do with some of the things that I thrift. And then also I've got a quick rearrangement of my curiosity cabinet. I've been sort of putting things in as I'm picking them up, but it was in a bit of a mess, so I've sort of rearranged it and sort of put it into collections, so we'll have a look at that at the end. But here at this antique market, it really was quite expensive. As I said, it's the first time I've been there, and it was a great place, covered quite a large area, and saw a load of really cool stuff. It's funny because I've seen stuff from when I was a kid in the UK, and then a lot of stuff that, you know, people who grew up in North America and Canada would have had that were different to what we had, and then things that were, you know, really translate across society, but some really cool little items that were there. Picked up a few things at a thrift haul. Some of them, again, I really wanted but were ridiculously overpriced, so we'll have a little walk around and see what's there. It's funny, I'm finding my taste is changing. I'm seeing a lot of these little tin soldiers, from various eras, and I think they're really lovely. I would love to have a nice collection of those and be able to display them all in a nice big long glass cabinet. Again, some of these plates, they started at about 25, and that was the cheaper versions. They went anywhere from like that up to about $60, which is, I think, way overpriced for just transfer dishes. If you're lucky, you can still find them for, you know, $5 or $6 in the thrift stores, but mostly they're running thin in some areas, I'm finding. There was a lot of printed photographs, and postcards is something that I also look for. I did pick up a couple of postcards. Again, it's been hit and miss. I've either found them for a great price or really expensive, so obviously I found them for a really decent price and picked a few up. I do have a giggle sometimes at some of the things you find at these antique markets. King Charles looks like a voodoo doll. It was so weird. And of course, Diana doesn't look anything like her. This little lamp was gorgeous, $60 though. When I picked mine up for $15, there was no way I was going to pay that, but it was lovely. As were these dishes, again, probably 3 times what I would pay for them under normal circumstances. This caught my eye, just an old wooden hangers that have been painted and decorated with some lace and flowers. A lovely idea. Lots of linens, lots of embroidery, lots of crocheting. I love this. Under a dome, an old shaving set. What a great idea. And this is, so this was probably a third of the area. We were up on the second floor, and this was the middle section, and then there was probably the same on each side with a little bit of a mezzanine running over. So a heck of a lot of different vendors, and of course there was probably maybe 10 people in it when we were there, but this was like midweek. I can imagine on a weekend it would get quite busy. But again, I think everybody was commenting on the prices. Of this planter, I thought it was beautiful, almost bought it, but then it was $300, so I could buy a new one for that and fill it with plants. These little teapots I'm always looking for. I'd love a red teapot to go with my set. I just don't see them very often. I really wanted to bring this home with me, but it was $285. A lot of the stuff I buy I just use as is, but I do have items that I have picked up and worked on, this being the worst one I've ever done. If you remember this, I picked this up at an auction, and I don't know what I was thinking when I did it. This little one was $5 from the local thrift store, but I'll get back to the horrendous desk that I destroyed. It was decoupage, it was transfer, and then it was gold leaf, and it just turned out ugly. So I really, this one stumped me. I wanted to do something different on it, but you'll see how it looks in the end, and it looks really, even though I say myself, it turned out really well. I tried scraping it off, and in the end I ended just sanding it all off. Got everything down to the basics, and then gave it, and ended up being 5 coats of white paint, almost like a chalk paint, and then I used this transfer, which it came in 3 parts, and I kind of mixed and matched it. But you can see here, and I wanted to show you that, you know, things don't always go as planned. I got this first one on the top part of the desk, and I'm not sure if the paint was different there, or it wasn't thick enough, or I don't know what happened, but this transfer would not stick. It turned out so badly. It peeled up, it wouldn't stay down, it wouldn't stick, the letters wouldn't stick, but the paper was, as I was putting it away, it was pulling away the letters and the paint underneath. Now, I did end up decoupaging it down with Mod Podge, and it looks a bit of a mess, but then once I was painted it all and went over it, I thought, you know what, it doesn't have to be perfect. I think that sometimes we want everything to be so perfect all the time, and it just doesn't. And you can see this is a mess. It's terrible what went on here. I mean, I was going to start again, but I thought, no, I'm not going to. You know, life isn't perfect. Sometimes you just have to make do with the mess that you're making. So you'll see at the end, it turned out really quite nice. It was sticking to everything except for what it was supposed to stick to. But again, like I said, it took a bit of work, but I did get it to stay down and used Mod Podge, and it was okay when it was finished. So between doing the first part, the Curtis's part, I did actually rub a layer of Mod Podge on the rest of the desk. I thought this would give us a nice layer between the paint and the transfer, and it would give it something to stick to. So it did work very well on the rest of the desk, but only after I gave it a very nice big thick coat of Mod Podge. And like I said, I had this transfer, and it was like I cut it into 3 different pieces. I just wanted to use mostly writing and then a little bit of decor on it. And again, like I said, I'm very happy with how it turned out. Now you can see I'd measured the halfway point when I did the first Curtis's sign, so I knew where my halfway was, and then it was just a matter of lining up the halfway and getting my lines just so that it was positioned pretty well central to the desk, the lid of the desk. I just wanted to point out, if you are doing as I've done when you're doing your transfer and you're cutting pieces to make up your own transfer, as it were, be careful to make sure that it's all nice and pressed down. and that it doesn't slip around, because when you are rubbing these letters to make them stick to your surface, sometimes you can move the paper, things move around, so try and keep it as still as possible as you're going, and it should work pretty well. Once the transfer was complete, I went over the whole thing with some antiquing wax, thicker in some areas than others, and then I took a block of sandpaper and just rubbed down certain areas where there would be more wear and tear. You've seen me do decoupage before, but have you seen me use material? I had this little desk and I had a piece of leftover William Morris material, and I really wanted to put this on this desk because it's something that you don't see very often, especially this print with the colours in it, and it was just lovely, and I wanted this to go on the surface of this little hall desk. So I gave it a really nice thick coat of decoupage underneath in Mod Podge, and then laid on my piece of fabric. Now it was a little short, but you'll see afterwards what I've done is I patched it all the way around, and you really can't tell. You can do this when the pattern is so busy, because you don't notice the areas that I've joined it, especially if it's going against a wall and you have things on this little desk, you won't notice it. So what I've done is I've put this down on a layer of Mod Podge, and then I've gone over it and smoothed it all out as smooth as I can get it. I've let that to dry, and then I gave it about an hour, and then went over the top of it again with the waterproof Mod Podge this time, so that, should something get spilt on it, it's not going to ruin anything. So you can see another nice thick coat all over, and then what I did was I just cut the all the way around, gave it about 1/2 inch, and then tucked it all under, and again gave it all a nice layer of Mod Podge to seal it all up. You can see there what I've done. In the corners I had to make little cuts to get it to turn, but it's turned out really quite nicely. It's got a nice finish on it, and again it's waterproof and it's material, and you would never know that that wasn't either paper or tissue paper. So it's good use if you have scraps of material and you want them to match something in the room, or you're making something and you want them to become a set. You can use material as long as you use lots of Mod Podge and finish your edges properly. You'll notice I didn't paint the table. I thought the wood colour matched the vines in the fabric, and all in all it looks really nice and goes perfectly well in my William Morris hallway. So let's have a look at the few things that I picked up. This was from the Antique Mall. This was $8, and these type of things, you don't see thrifting. So when I see these and they're in nice condition and they're a good price, I will pick them up. I do collect items related to Her Majesty, and this I thought would go well with the collection that I've got. I guess it was a really nice little booklet, and it was in lovely condition. I also picked up a couple of little items. There was a glass set which was 6 glasses that were quintessentially English, and I ended up with just buying this one because I wouldn't use them. I'd be frightened of breaking them, and one I can use as in my displays, and this is something that again just lovely for what I wanted. And then I did pick up this little tin version of Her Majesty. And I think it was Trooping of the Colour. And this was just lovely. It did come in a little box, but I liked it out of the box, and it's quite heavy, and it's, like I said, it's made of, I think it's lead, so I was happy to pick that up. So that was $1, The Age of Shakespeare. It's a great little history piece for the library. These cards were fantastic. These were $1 each, and they from 1901 to 1908. So I think I got 5 of them. And this particular stall had a box, there must have been 200 in there. So I was there for quite a while going through these cards. And what I was trying to do was cover all the bases. So I've got Easter, I've got Valentine's, so I'm trying to get one for each of the holidays that I'll put up in my cabinet, and this was just a really nice one with the little 3 lions of England, and this is the Lake District, which is one of the most beautiful places in the world. So I just picked that up as well. That was no particular no season, just a lovely postcard. Again, 1909 was that one. And then Forget Me Not, which I thought could do for Valentine's or Remembrance Sunday. This little picture was thrown in with this picture behind of the elderly gentleman in a lovely wooden frame. I got a little lamp and a copper plant holder, and she just threw that in when I picked them all up, and that was at another little place one of the weekends. This was a lovely find, this old Kodak camera. The leather case, everything was in lovely condition. I'm thinking this is probably from the sort of 40s, 50s, and I just thought it was so nice. It would go lovely with the collection that I've got. This was $7.99. I got this from Value Village. There was a whole collection of them. Some of them the same as the ones I've got, and then these two, and there was another one, but you know what? There's only so many that I can fit in. And this one was an old Polaroid, probably one of the first Polaroids. It all collapses flat. I just thought that this was fantastic again. And I think this one was $9.99, so I picked both of these up. I'm really pleased with these finds. The day I went in and saw these, it was funny, it was one that was out of the way than I normally go, and there was a whole, like I said, there was a whole collection of these cameras, and I thought, you know, somebody's obviously spent years collecting these cameras, and here they are now at Value Village, and I thought, you know, at least I'm going to look after them and cherish them and value them for what they were. You know, I'd hate to think of somebody not appreciating somebody else's collection, and I thought, you know, I hope somebody does it the same for me, because we collect these things, and they are just all things. I mean, you know, they might remind us of the past or a certain time in, you know, or a person or a thing, but ultimately it's all just things. I mean, they don't work, I don't think they do anyway, but it's the memories that are involved with them, I think, a lot of the time. So it's nice to think that I'm going to cherish these as much as the person who they belonged to originally. So this little Spode collector item, which is for spices, actually was the same price. I bought it for $5, and I bought it from the thrift store for $5. I have another one in blue, so I did pick that up. I picked up this little lamp. It's to go on the wall. I've got to get a glass cover for it, and I thought I would cover it with a bit of gold leaf or gilt, you know, to bring the shine back to it. But that was nice. That was $5. I'm a bit of a sucker for an old apron. This was probably from the 40s or 50s, and that was $1, and I really liked that one, so that's going to go with my collection in the kitchen. And then I picked up This was $1.50. This was thrifting. Again, it'll go in my room. Going to have a collection of cherubs in there. These little napkins, love a good napkin. $1 for 8, which is perfect, a really great price, and they're in good condition. And then this, it looks like it's a curtain, but I thought I could use it on the table. I like the fringe and I like the material, so and that was $1 as well. And then finally, this was $5, and I'm going to give it a polish up, and I'm going to put 3 or 4 different plants in it and hopefully put it in my living room. I really liked the size and the shape. So finally, onto my curio cabinet and displaying some of my collections. Now, as I said, I have just been sort of dropping things in this cabinet as I go, and usually every season I redo the whole thing, try and work in things that are seasonal. So this time around I wanted to do sort of the shelves, so I cleared it all out, gave it a bit of a clean and sort of started afresh. I took everything out, put everything on the table, most things out, put them on the table, and kind of grouped them. Some things I'm not putting back in, some new things I'm putting in, but like I said, I'm trying to go with a theme on each of the shelves. So here's what I've taken out, and like I said, 90% of this is going back in, but some of it is staying out for the time being. So this is the top shelf, and what I did was I kind of went with almost like an office, a gentleman's office theme. So I've got the cameras, a couple of clocks, the little weighing scales with the paid stamp. There's a little gavel there. There's an old ink pots with the blotter and the glasses, and I thought that sort of all kind of went with that sort of work, almost like a working theme, like it's somebody's desk, they're a photographer or something like that. The second layer was another sort of gentleman's theme. I went with my horse mug with my little antlers, and again another little ink pot. And then my compasses, there's a couple of compasses, the postcards, the magnifying glass, the 2 hip flasks that we picked up in the UK, a little cigarette case, men's tie clips, and a men's clothes brush. Again, all sort of tried to time together in the theme. And then the bottom layer was my sort of ladies shelf. So I had some of my Art Deco, there's a belt there from the Art Deco era. There's my little collection of pins from the 20s, a little snuff box, my little Edwardian jewel case, again diamante earrings, and then there's a picture of the lady from the 1920s with her opera glasses and her opera gloves. There's an Art Deco ring, my cameo ring, and my little collection of perfume bottles, again all sort of tied together with that sort of ladies theme on the bottom shelf. One of the main things to do when you are putting together this type of curio cabinet is one of the things that you follow is to put like with like. So that's kind of how I came up with this sort of theme. You could do with glass and silver together with brass items, or like the cameras you could do by colour. So remember that when you are putting your collections together, it's like with like, or things that will go together in type. To show you this quick sneak peek of this lovely desk that I picked up for $15, and that's going to be next week's project. So we'll see you then. Have a great week.